So, hi everyone. So I'm William, and I work with EUPA, and basically, and basically, we are the national agency for Erasmus funding and also other centralized funding, and we deal with the European Commission and funding that is distributed towards the island. So, in this occasion, I'm going to be talking about Erasmus Plus, and this is a fund which has been around for a while, and now we've just started a new funding period. So 2021 to 2027 is a new funding period for Erasmus Plus. It is built on the previous funding period, so there are 7-year cycles, and we always focus on education, training, youth, and sport. So what's the aim of Erasmus Plus? So our aim is always to create upskilling of people, to support personal and professional development, and to embrace people in society. The idea is that people, after embarking on an Erasmus Plus project, feel they are more included in society, and there's some active citizenship that's been created, or some sense of belonging. So our aim is always to focus on sustainable growth, quality jobs, social cohesion, innovation in all the sectors, strengthening of our EU identity. In fact, this is one important element. Any Erasmus project always requires some sort of either traveling or some sort of cooperation with foreign partners. And the last and one of the most important is active citizenship. So as you all know, Erasmus Plus deals with mainly the under 30s strata, and one main focus is the push of younger people being involved in day-to-day life. So I think I can change the slide, please. That's okay. Thanks. So the Erasmus Plus program is split into two main areas, which is decentralized funding and centralized funding. So I'll be focusing on the decentralized aspect because that is our role as an NA, mostly take care of. So this is split into Key Action 1, Key Action 2, and Key Action 3. So I will be dealing with Key Action 2 because my colleague Victoria just talked about Key Action 1 mostly. So I'll be talking about Key Action 2, and Key Action 3 has now become more centralized. So Key Action 2, it's always surrounding the fact of cooperation. The idea that there is some cooperation on a transnational level, so on the European level. Every time we think of the Erasmus Plus program, we have to note that there are four main horizontal priorities. And these are inclusion and diversity, which focuses on not only disabilities, however, also, for example, social backgrounds that create a barrier, cultural differences, geographical locations. So when we think of addressing this priority, it's always important that we think about anything that will limit your inclusion and diversity and create more diversity in your project. Secondly is digital transformation. So as we've seen due to the pandemic, there's been a rise in the use of technology. In fact, the Erasmus Plus program is a very, very flexible and modern program, and they've embraced the idea of having virtual mobilities or hybrid mobilities. So this is the idea that part of the mobility can be done behind the screen from your home. And also even the meetings that are carried. So for Key Action 2, where it's mostly meeting-based and collaboration can also happen online. So this is a new novelty for Erasmus. The third point is environment and climate change. So note that in the guide, so there's a guide that comes out every year, and in the guide it's written as fighting climate change, because the Commission wants us to make sure that we're not only ensuring that we are pro-climate change and creating procedures, but actually doing stuff. So for example, not only reducing the amount of paper that's being used in a project, but how is it sustained after the project? What are we teaching the people who are in the project? So these are all important points. The idea that the sustainability post-project funding. The Commission is pushing a lot on this because we would like to push as much as possible on the effect of society more than numbers. And the last and final horizontal priority, which affects every area, is that of active citizenship. As I said before, this is one main priority of getting younger people back into being active in the community and influencing community positively long term. So as a key action too, so basically just go back for 1 second, every project must always address one of these key priorities. So your project always has to address one key priority, which is horizontal, as well as a sector priority. Now, when it comes to sector priorities, I'll be talking about higher education priorities. And these in this sector, firstly, is about promoting interconnected higher education. So the idea that there's this innovative learning approach and teaching practices, to sharing of teaching practices, for example, between different institutions or different private entities. Also developing STEM and STEAM in higher education. This is also very important, especially we are in the digital era now, and science and technology has been very, very important. We also want to focus on rewarding excellence in learning, teaching, and skills development. So the idea that we are giving long life skills towards our beneficiaries, and the project also withholds a sustainable element with post-project funding. And mainly, the other important aspect is that we're building an inclusive higher education system, and that we're creating this kind of digital capabilities of the higher education sector. So again, digitalization is a really, really big factor. And also, so when you're writing out your proposal, it's important to not only include your first, the horizontal priorities, as well as the higher education priorities. It's good if you create links or parallels between these priorities. And yes, so key action to cooperation projects also have their own objectives. So these stem from the building of capacity of organizations. So this may include, for example, increasing the quality of work that your organization is carrying out, or activities, and the practices that are shared between institutions. Again, remember that there always is this transnational element, so this European element, and we, as partners in a project, you always need to address each other. So you're addressing each other's common needs and practices, and your priorities as an organization, because every organization has its own priorities. So what's our focus of applying for Key Action 2 project? So our focus is always to enable some sort of transformation and change within our organization. And it's important to always note that we're always looking for things that are innovative, pushing the limits, something new. In fact, even when it comes to choosing your partners, it does not need to be another higher institution. It could be private organizations. You can have a Key Action project which is solely made up of private organizations. So there is no pressure to always include a higher education institution. Obviously, if you do include a higher education system, as Victoria just mentioned before, they must hold a charter. So that is just an important key. However, if you are dealing with just private entities, there is no need for the charter. So what is a cooperation project? So it's a lump sum grant, and you can have a minimum of 100,000 euros up to 400,000 euros. And it has to be a project that lasts between 12 to 36 months. So this is quite an important thing to note. And it must have 3 organizations from 3 different program countries. So this is also important. I always ask everyone to have a good read of the guide. The program countries have changed now, especially because of the UK, for example, is no longer a program country. So this is something important to note. And that differs because it makes a difference because you end up having different funding capabilities and quotas. So yes, as we mentioned before, when you come to write your proposal needs to bring together the most important things that affect the target group of this sector. So the target group of this sector can be made up of higher education students, higher education teachers and professors, staff of higher education institutions, and trainers and professionals in enterprises. So again, there's this element that you can also include people who are professionals in industry that are not quite related to an AGI. So when it comes to structuring your Key Action 2 proposal and project, it's always important to now focus on having your project, which is your idea, which breaks up into different work packages that focus on different themes, and each work package focuses on specific activities. I think this is very important because we see loads of applications who have lack of structure, and that is something that you are also graded on throughout the funding, throughout the application process, sorry. And by work package, I mean, for example, including the budget, your activities, your proposed, and also we also need to always know why you want to do something. So it's not because I want to hold a meeting here. It's not because I want to hold a mobility. It's because I want to do this because there's a reason behind it. So for example, something we always tell our beneficiaries is to include some sort of qualitative or quantitative data that they can monitor throughout the project. And also if they have any data that they have collected previously, before embarking on the application process, that they can base their application on. So we want a reason to why you're applying for this funding. Basically, our idea always here with Key Action 2 projects is that you're circulating around the idea of collaboration, cooperation, strengthening between your links and your networks with foreign personnel. And it's about also gaining experience from this project. Misconceptions. Yes, so one of the major misconceptions that I felt when we've gone through, applications is that people feel that they always need to include an HEI. So you can have, as I was mentioning before, a Key Action 2 project that does not include an HEI. The second biggest misconception is including an HEI without a charter. So every HEI that's included always must have a charter, unless they come from a partner country. By partner country, it's basically a list on the program guide. And also the third one I feel is the misconception that people avoid the sector priorities. So it's always very, very important to give them as much importance as the horizontal. We see this a lot. It's very easy to skip while you're writing your application. And also, again, the idea that your application must always be sustainable. So how is this going to sustain itself post-funding? And what are people going to feel and achieve after this funding period? So I think it's important as well to note that as an agency, we get a lot of people coming like, hey, can we go through your application? And one of the major points as well we find is that we get applications with lack of detail. So for example, they would mention a location in Malta, for example, and obviously some of our assessors are foreign and they would not know certain things. So I think it's always important to actually dig into each aspect and ask why did you mention this location, for example? Why did you want to work with this organization? Because they won't be aware of the organizations. Also, I think when it comes to inclusion and diversity, as we were mentioning in the beginning, try and include other things for inclusion, So for example, as I was mentioning, the cultural barriers. Also, for example, socioeconomic is something that you can include people in. It's not only about disabilities. And also by disabilities, it can be physical, mental, it can be, there's an array of things that are applicable. These are all mentioned in the guide and they're listed. Again, it's important that you continuously refer to the guide. Also, I think another important thing is we also offer, as an agency, we offer the opportunity for you to come up with a proposal and we discuss it. We can set one-to-one meetings, so that's also important to know. We can also help you, for example, if you need to fine-tune something, we can help you with that writing process as well. Yes, and also when it comes to the grants, as we said, it's a lump sum, so it's easier to handle. However, obviously, you always need to keep records of anything that is spent because you can be selected in auditing processes, etc. I know it may sound very obvious, but so yes. So basically, that's our main focus, And as an NA, we ensure that everything is always met as regarding priorities and also protocols. And also to mention a bit about this new funding period, basically we are we're building upon the previous funding period. So it's always like kind of we're not reinventing the wheel here. So if you've ever applied, it's a very similar procedure and also similar concept. And the priorities are very similar. They're just adapted to the modern world. And we believe that if you have experience in Key Action 2 projects, usually the Key Action 2 for higher education is a good way to go, because we find like if you're new to Erasmus funding, it might be very difficult as well to approach. However, we encourage you, and we also provide services to aid you regarding this. I don't know if there's any questions, by the way, throughout. You can just stop me. Yes. The time frame. Yes. Okay. So. Okay.
I believe you said it, but I missed.
Okay, so it's 12 to 36 months, and that's you choose that. And also, every year there is one application round at the moment. So this year the application rounds have already passed. So next one is approximately usually between March and June. You can follow our stuff online, and you'll be updated. You can also sign up to our mailing list from our website to receive notifications regarding this. So yeah, so it's 12 to 36 months. What else did I? Yes, so always when we're in Key Action 2 again, it's important that there is this joint cooperation at the transnational level. So the partners need to be foreign, like non-local. Obviously, you are one of the partners, so Malta is obviously a program country. And as I was saying, the list of program countries, they are all listed in front of the program guide. Yes, I think most of that is everything. So I don't know if anyone else has other questions.
Yes, can I have a question?
Sure.
How is it going to work out if the partners, for example, are from the UK now?
Okay. Okay, sure. So basically, partners from the UK. So you have to have 3 partners, and they must be from a program country. So if they are from a partner country, they are over and above those 3. So for example, you would need Malta, another 2 program countries, and then the UK. So the UK would be the 4th, because they are now considered a program country. Obviously, since they are not a 100% they're a partner country, they are not entitled to all funding, and not everything is fundable. So in the guide, I haven't gone through these because I think it's a very tedious thing to go through all these numbers. So if you go to the guide, everything is listed point by point, and it says, for example, partner countries are funded X amount. You can only be funded if you have a certain amount of program countries, for example. One important thing to note is always read the footers, because some people tend to skip the footers because there are quite a few footnotes. So yes, they're usually funded. For example, I can give you an example. For example, you cannot hold the activity in the partner country if there's no valid reason for it. So we would always push for you holding the activities in program countries, because obviously our aim is to push for the program countries. So for example, we have the applications this year where you would have 3 program countries, and they wanted to hold all the activities in a partner country, which was the UK. Obviously, that's not justifiable anymore because they don't fall part under the program area. You can get around this sometimes with saying, for example, that there is no other institution or organization that, for example, can supersede them, or they have something that's a skill that no other place can give you. However, since we're talking on a European level, this is very, very unlikely. So we always believe that you should have to push for the program countries. Again, the partners can be there. Obviously, the funding is not the same. There is a much reduced funding. So that's something to take into consideration. Obviously, again, things change from year to year. So for example, this year there were 3 versions of the program guide, and this is the first year that we're experiencing the UK as a partner country. So this is something also to consider, that next year things might change, or they might be more flexible. So do keep up to date with the program.
So I have a question with regards to partnership for excellence, and mandate letter is not in the list of mandatory documents. Is it hidden somewhere, or it's just removed from the key actions?
For the UK, it's okay.
Mandate letter for the whole.
Okay. So partnerships for excellence, I didn't go upon them because our agency focuses mostly on decentralized, and that's considered centralized funding. If you want, you can take my details and send me an email, and we'll have a one-to-one meeting. But basically, when it comes to these, so there's Partnerships for Excellence, and also there's their Mundus funding as well. These all have different restrictions, so you need to consult the guide. And just to clarify on your question, is there anything specific that you?
Recently, there were less mandate letters to sign for the Erasmus projects, so there was a reduced number of mandatory documents to be submitted together with the application.
For Erasmus Plus, the mandates are still the same. So, for example, every organization will need to sign the mandate, and this needs to be done by the application deadline. When it comes to the innovation for excellence, etc., as well, they follow similar lines. I'm not 100% sure because I don't have all the information with me. But again, take my contact details, and I will communicate with you after the session. I think because I think it's very complex, and we don't get that many beneficiaries in the innovations, for excellence. Again, so when it comes to centralized funding, there are quite a few more. Obviously, the competition is greater because you're competing with Europe. You're not just competing with the Maltese market. And these always encompass, an HEI, so they always need to encompass a charter. So HEIs always need to have the charter. That's very important. And also, you can also have even joint collaborations with VET. I think so that's also new. And also, I think it's important to know that there are a lot of new novelties in this program guide. So things have changed from the past 7 years. So I do encourage you to read the program guide as well. Sorry.
I opened the guide. There is no mandate letter mentioned, so maybe I'm missing it.
I'll double check for you and get back to you because I'm not 100% sure. So on my part, I think we finished. I don't know if anyone else has any questions online, maybe. So these are my contact details if anyone needs to contact later. As I said, we offer like personal one-to-one meetings or any updates that we need to, update you on, and you can.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can start when you're ready.
Okay, you can hear me. I can't hear anything you're saying, so.
Okay.
I guess you want me to start, right?
Yes, please.
It's just about 9.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for inviting me. I will start my presentation now. I'm presenting on behalf of myself and my colleagues, Maria Kazar in the Faculty of Nursing, Health Science, and Professor Xavier Samet at the Vice Rector of Research at the University of Malta, and also the whole teams for our 2 Erasmus Plus grants, DIGA, which started in 2019 and ends in 2022. We're just beginning our 3rd year, and Tobit 2021-2023. Okay, first thing, I was asked to give you some tips if you're a professor or a graduate student applying for a grant, and some tips and best practices that we've learned through our project. So some of these are very basic and elementary, but I will cover them very quickly, and if you have any questions, you can ask me at any time. First of all, if you're about to apply for a grant, the thing is plan ahead. You need a lot of time. Don't think you're going to write it in a week or 2 weeks, even 3 weeks. My experience has been that there's about 40 sections in an Erasmus Plus grant. Each one requires up to 5,000 characters. It can take you an hour to write one of these 40 sections, or it can take you a day, depending on if you've written things on it before, or if you can cut and paste from other things, or if you have to create it from scratch. So it's going to take you a lot of time. If you're the principal investigator, expect to do most of the work yourself, but give yourself a lot of time. I would say 6 months if you can, but definitely more than at least a month. And that would be working almost full time on it. Also, you need to build in time to write each section, adhering to the limitations. I remember in both my grants, we were able to get almost exactly the number of characteristics. So 5,000 or 4,099. So it is a bit of a skill to be able to write in these limitations. You don't want it too short, you can't have it too long. So you need to realize the volume of work involved. A lot of the sections, there's a little bit of redundancy. I think there's 40 sections approximately. It could probably be reduced to 30 and make it easier in both the applicant and the Erasmus, because there is some redundancy, but there is a lot of creating to do. You have to give your partners time to review sections. I've realized that I usually get very little feedback, but when I do get it, it's often helpful. So give time for the partners to review, just out of respect, and also to get better ideas. And also it takes time to get the mandates signed. It can take people, so get those out early in your proposal writing stage, so that they can get their rectors or presidents or whoever to sign these forms. It can take you weeks to get these back. And you also have to, one thing I have found helpful is to create a conceptual visual of the project, which will sort of give you a conceptual idea of what you're doing. Sometimes we think we know what we're doing in our head, but when we try to articulate it, it's not as clear. So I find getting a representation of the framework very helpful to conceptualize, and also to do presentations for people. You can upload it. It isn't required. It's just something I have found helpful to articulate my ideas to the rest of the team and other people. I don't even know if Erasmus reads them. They're not required. You can't upload them at the back, but they're helpful to you and your team. And they're also helpful when you're doing presentations like this one later. Okay, choosing your partners is a big part of the project. I'm really lucky. Maria is very helpful in this. It's good to get a combination of different countries, different industry and academia, and also sometimes an NGO. So you also want to get complementary skills. So if you're doing a project that needs a lot of computer development skills and your company doesn't have that, or if your organization isn't their expertise, you want to look for a partner that has the expertise that you don't, so that you can learn with, from, and about each other throughout the project. So choosing your partners is a really important part, not only strategically to catch the interest of Erasmus, and that it would be a good partner, but also to get the work done efficiently and effectively. So you have complementary skills. This is, I mentioned having a visual is sometimes helpful. This is the one we did for DIGA. DIGA was our first Erasmus grant, as I mentioned, obtained in 2019, and it's digital education and timely solutions. So here you can see the title and the acronym DIGA. And also underneath, a quick rationale of what we're doing. DIGA provides solutions to address the imbalance and inequity of digital education opportunities offered to EU universities. So really one statement, very clear. You can see what it's going to do. You can see the audience, it lists them, the outputs. Our 5 or 6 outputs are listed there very succinctly, and how we'll evaluate it. Then if you move down, you can see it lists the outcomes. For example, use of technology in teaching will increase, or global access for free quality resources. So our outcomes are listed. And then it mentions what we'll do, which is a partnership of teaching and learning with healthcare and education, and that it will have a digital education framework and companion study. So this is something I do for me and my team. It's useful for presentations like this. And I don't know if it helped me get the grant or even they look at it, but I find it a helpful thing when you're applying for a grant. This is the one we did for Tobit very quickly. Again, you can see the title, what we're going to do. Tobit has 3 video digital education programs and an outline online repository to increase educators' digital education readiness and competence, enhance the quality of online, distance, and blended learning, and safeguard the inclusive nature of digital learning opportunities. One sentence, they can see what we're doing, our audience, our outputs, our evaluation, and then you can see the outcomes on the left. It'll increase digital education readiness, increase digital education competence, increase education quality, and increase digital education opportunities. You can see what we're going to do, get ready video series, get started. And that picture you see of the connectivity sign is one of our outputs from the previous project, DIGA. It's our European Union Digital Education Quality Standard Framework and Companion Evaluation Tool. So you can see how we're building on our previous project. So again, here's the one-page visual that explains what our project is going to do, which I have found helpful in conceptualizing our project. This one is a third one where it shows how our Tobit project is going to complement and extend our DIGA. We didn't want them to think we were doing more of the same. So the blue in the middle of this diagram is our DIGA project. You can see what we're doing. And then underneath it, you can see that our 2 video series in the Tobit project, Get Ready, Get Started, are intended to get more people into the 9-module course we created in the DIGA project and the Train the Trainer. And then afterwards, this project extends it by developing another project called Teaching Tips at Your Fingertips. So these are just visuals that I have found helpful, again, when I'm applying for a research project, and they're useful throughout the whole project. Okay, so one thing in implementing the project I found really helpful is to have monthly scheduled meetings. For example, the first Monday in every month at 2 o'clock Malta time. Everyone knows, they put it on their calendar for the whole 3 years of the project or 2 years of the project. They have them, and we have Zoom meetings. Some people like monthly meetings or weekly meetings. I find if you have it once a month, then you have time in between meetings to get things done. And people are busy, and then they make sure they show up. It's essential that one person from each organization attends that meeting, hopefully everyone involved in the meeting, but there's a rule that at least one person has to attend from every organization. So the meetings are very organized. There's always an agenda, which is sent out before, and there are always minutes written with what we do at the meeting. So they're organized, they're once a month, they're at the same time every month. And they're usually an hour long or an hour and a half. So they're very well, and they don't draw on, and everyone has things to do for every meeting, so that they're expected to present what their draft of this or whatever they've been asked to do in that meeting. The minutes, which are sent out after each meeting, are really helpful in reminding us what we're doing, what we've done, what we will do, what our promises are. And also these are our documents that we can cut and paste from to fill out our reports for Erasmus. our annual reports, our biannual reports, and also our mobility tools. We can cut and paste from these minutes, which we have found really helpful. It makes writing these reports much less onerous because it's all written somewhere already. Every month we keep up to date. Delegate the work. I don't pretend to be good at things I'm not. I search for people who are better at things than I am. You give them credit, you give them responsibility, you give them credit for it, and you work as a team with complementary skills. This is why it's really important to choose your partners wisely. So when you have a partner and their responsibility is to design the web page or design something in computers or to evaluate, I always discuss before so they understand what your expectations are, but then I delegate, and you have to find the right balance between trusting and supporting. So sometimes there's been a rare occasion where people don't do things as well as I think they should be done, and that's another skill that you have to sort of give feedback. And I don't do it for them, but I do some of it to take it to the next level so it's understood what I expect. And then I send it back and say, you know, you have to create themes, or you have to, here's an example of what I might do. And I spend a lot of time supporting, giving feedback. A lot of times I'm an older, more experienced academic staff member, and also a lot of the people I'm working with are young and haven't written proposals or haven't published yet. So a lot of it as a senior faculty member is mentoring and helping people learn how to do these skills. And so if something isn't done right, it's an important skill to learn how to mentor and get it done to the quality that you think it needs to be done. Sometimes, and this happened in our DIGA project, that we had a partner who was a hospital, and COVID happened. So they didn't have the time to do what we needed them to do. Fortunately, I had a PhD student, a former PhD student, who was visiting Malta and had a lot of experience in e-learning. We had a little bit of exceptional funds, and we could cover her expenses. And we had funds to hire someone, or sometimes you need funds to hire someone where the university doesn't have time. If they're overwhelmed with their IT department, you may have to go to a private company. So putting money in the exceptional funds can save you. We were lucky, we couldn't pay my postdoc student for all her time, but as a senior faculty member, she was happy to volunteer, and we were lucky enough to pay some of her expenses. So that is a really important budget, I find, and especially if you're working in IT, where right now IT departments are running flat out and you might need help. Deadlines. I'm constantly giving deadlines and delegating. I drafted in our DIGA project the first 2 articles for publication. I outline them, I complete all the parts where I'm the expert, and then I pass it out to the authors. I think there's about 30 researchers in that project, and we have about 10 authors on each of the papers. We have about 7 papers planned. 2 are already in print, published after 2 years. And so what, and several more are in draft form, but what I do is I make sure that everyone's involved, and I led the first 2 papers, but now I say, okay, I want every organization to lead one of these papers. I support them, but I want them as first authors on some of the papers. So that's another thing. I'm trying to, again, build their CVs, build their experience and build their careers, so that the best part of being involved in Erasmus is learning for themselves. So and getting the confidence to publish, present. The other thing is too, I wrote a presentation for a conference, and then I asked each organization, please find a virtual conference where you can present in the next 6 months. So every one of our organizations are leading conference presentations. We also apply for awards, Best Online Course Award, and this again all goes on everyone's CV, which makes everyone it makes a really good experience for everyone. Lead by example. I try to work as hard or harder than I expect others to work. I try to be a mentor and a role model, be supportive and bring the best out in the team members to help them develop their careers, so that they want to work with you and they want to apply for a second grant with you. Give credit where credit is due. If someone wrote a proposal for a conference, give them, mention it, give them credit. If they apply for, I applied for an award for our first course, and now one of our partners has applied for one, took the initiative on themselves, the same award for another output that we had. So compliment people and use positive language, apply for awards, conferences, accreditation. We got our courses accredited so people get ETSs for their courses that they take, write papers and publications so that the team develops their CV and careers in addition to getting experience. When I'm developing any course, I always do a needs analysis with the stakeholders involved or whatever I'm doing, so that it's much more likely that what I'm going to produce is going to meet their needs. So I always do some kind of a needs analysis, and almost always our products are successful. And I think a lot of that is because we understand the needs of the learner. I often use a digital education. I always use a digital education framework to guide the design, delivery, and evaluation of my course. And so the first output in our first DIGA project was to develop a European Union digital education framework and companion evaluation tool. So I'm just going to show you that now. I hope I can get it on. Do I have internet? I think I do. Here it comes now. So what this framework is, we did a review of literature to see what digital education frameworks already existed. We an extensive review of literature on 5 different websites, and we read all the articles and came up with all the variables and sub-variables that were essential to consider when you were designing effective e-learning. So we came up with this framework. First of all, we had to identify all the variables, which took months, and then we had to define them, and then we had to come up with the diagram, which we like this one. We've never seen it used. It's the connectivity sign that you see at the top of your computer on the right. So if you're connected to the internet. So this is what our framework looks like. And if you mouse over any of the terms there, it's interactive, the definition will emerge. So when you're designing online learning, effective online learning, you have to consider all these variables if you want it to be effective. For example, content. And under content, the variables are, you want it relevant, organized, and chunked, support it with relevant resources, and ground it in theory and practice. So if you click on content, it will define it. I won't read it to you, but you can actually access this yourself and you can use it. And then also, so you can see everything. These are the countries that were involved in designing it, the 5 universities involved in our DIGA project. And we have a companion evaluation toolkit to evaluate programs or using this. So you have a summative questionnaire, excuse me, an online course evaluation, temperature check, a DIGA interview protocol, and demographics. So if we just look at one here, this is a companion evaluation. Oh, I'm going to have to go here. There you can see our evaluation toolkit, and we're in the process of validating these. So if I can get back to my, get rid of this. Okay, so this is a framework that we find helpful when designing e-learning. So if I get out of this. And finally, I want to go back one slide. Can I go back one slide? Oh, I'm sharing my screen. I guess I can do it. I can't. Okay, I'll just keep going. I wanted to show you a roadmap that I created or our team created, that guides the design, development, and delivery of online courses. If I can, I'll get back to that in a second. But while I have this, you want to compensate people appropriately. And that's financially, with time, enough time. And also you want to give them credit, like put their name on a paper, have them review the paper or add segments to it, have them lead a paper, conference presentations and their names on awards. So are there any, I think, are there any questions, please? Can you hear me? Are there any questions?
Yes, we checked in the chat. There is no questions from the audience. So if
I'll show you the roadmap. I don't know if anyone's even hearing me anymore.
Okay.
Maybe you can send me a message.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. I got a message. There are no questions. Okay, before I go, then I'll just show you the roadmap. I got it up. Okay, this is the roadmap I use for courses. So it just describes what the roadmap is, and it talks about these things that are all in that framework, content delivery, all the things you have to consider. And here it is. So every day, every week, the learner knows what's expected. They have the week and the dates, they have the learning objectives, and they have their activities. So if you go to week 2, it's on content. They have February 18th to 24th. By the end of this week, you will be able to very succinct learning objectives. And then they have read it's. You can see here, read it. So everything they need to read is at their fingertips. All the links are provided. They have apply it, and that's where they have to apply what they read and learned in the slide presentations beforehand, and then discuss it. So it tells them exactly what they need to do. Week 3, content, their objectives are here. By the end of this, you'll be able to, and then again, read it. Every week, read it, apply it, and discuss it. So that helps people know exactly what to do. And we have that in our course for both the 9-module course and our DIGA project, as well as our outcomes. Okay, so I think I have 5 minutes left. Are there any questions at all? Or anything else you want me to elaborate on? Or those are just a few of the things and lessons learned and best practices that we've learned from our DIGA project and our Tobit, which is just starting.